Attention Caribbean authors and creators. Are you looking to elevate your literary journey? This is Kevin George, your host and presenter from TLC Tropical Literature Creatives, and I'm thrilled to share an exciting opportunity with you, introducing our bespoke promotional services designed exclusively for authors of Caribbean heritage. Whether you're a seasoned professional or a rising star, we're here to amplify your voice. From getting the word out about your book launch, your self-publishing services, or workshops, to sharing services that you offer to fellow authors and creatives. Visit our website or reach out to us today to explore how we can tailor our expertise to showcase your literary brilliance. Let's unlock the next chapter of success together. Greetings, listeners. Welcome to TLC Tropical Literature Creatives, the podcast where we interview authors and creatives about themselves as well as their literary works. Today we have with us Daniel J. O'Brien, author of the books The Midnight Robber, The Carnival Prince, and for good measure, he has also been the illustrator of these said books. So, ladies and gentlemen, Daniel J. O'Brien. Welcome to the podcast, Daniel.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I really do appreciate this.
Okay, now it's really great to have you. It's really great to have you. Which Caribbean island do you share heritage with?
I was born and raised in Trinidad and Tobago. Moved up to the States when I was only 9.
Oh, okay. So you spent like a lot of time there.
Yeah.
In terms of, I mean, it was a long time ago, but I'm just curious, just in case you encounter anyone like where you live right now and they ask you about, I'm going to Trinidad and Tobago, what do you recommend that I try? Or what food do you recommend I try when I go there? What would you tell them?
All right. So first things first, when you get off that plane, you find the first doubles cart, usually by the taxi stand. And it's like that's the first introduction for everybody. That's like all the stories I want to tell, that's where it starts. Right. The second visit is if you're a daredevil, Maracas Bay. I mean, I say that jokingly, of course, because everybody knows you got to drive it over those hills to get to the beach. But once you get there, it is just so serene, so beautiful. You got the bacon shark when you get there. Trinidad in general is just a very pristine place. You know, like everywhere you go is oozing culture. It doesn't matter if town, if it's a country, there's always something to see. You know, even down to the tar pits. Like you would think, what are just tar pits? But there's a lot of history behind it, like the savannah, like where carnival takes place, like the world's largest traffic circle. Like that's its name, but essentially it's this beautiful park with so much culture around it. Like it's hard to choose just one, to be very honest.
That is fantastic, Daniel. I mean, I live here and I just feel excited to just go to these places as well, just because of how you said it there.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. In terms of your books, can you tell us a little bit about them? You know, not too much, because we still want to go and buy the books. You know,
of course.
Illustrated, The Midnight Robber, as well as The Carnival Prince. Just a brief synopsis of each.
Yes. So as you can tell, it's like the people that from the islands from Trinidad, you hear the Carnival Prince, you hear the Midnight Robber. Both books take place in and around Caribbean, specifically Trinidad carnival culture. Right. Growing up, to this very day, my dad especially, is a carnival baby. Like his dad created costumes from when he was a kid so he could jump up in mass. Every year, my dad, to this very day, you could find him around the savannah taking in carnival. Like that is his lifeblood. And that's one of the things he passed down to us. And on one of my visits to Trinidad, I just graduated art school. And I was like, all right, it's like, how do I make an impact? Like I've been doing freelance illustration for a while, but like I wasn't feeling it was portraying me. Like I had a story to tell. And that's where the Carnival Prince came from. I remember walking through the airport before leaving Trinidad one day, and I was trying to find like good references to folklore and all this different stuff. And I was like, I kept coming across the same book, but different illustrations, or it's just revamped. Like it's the same story being told over and over and over again. I was like, you know what, I need to do something a little different. You know, it's like there needs to be a different introduction, because on top of that, those stories are horror stories, right? They consider horror, like, you know, like tales like warning kids not to do certain things and all this different stuff. I was like, no, we can do this a little better. So from there, it took me about 2 years to write The Carnival Prince. And essentially what it is, it's a mashup of Trinidadian folklore and Trinidadian carnival culture, right? So the Carnival Prince is actually the son of two very well-known folklore characters, Papa Boy and Mama Glow. And in his story, watching Trinidad grow, carnival culture being thrown into the mix, and not understanding the world, but wanting to be a part of it,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so it brings to life a lot of different aspects. So, like I said, the carnival culture, Mama Glow, Papa Boy, but also the carnival culture with the introduction of the Midnight Robber, who's also in that book, one of the main characters, and the traditional masked character, the dragon, like
Mm-hmm.
my interpretation of the dragon, come to life. And the story essentially is the Carnival Prince coming out of a shell,
Mm-hmm.
meeting the Midnight Robber, and having to save Carnival from this dragon.
Ah.
Yes. And the Midnight Robber is an extension of that because by far the Midnight Robber is one of my favorite characters in traditional mass.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to tell a story that would help empower little girls. Like that's the easiest way I can put it, but it's more than that. Where you're also reintroducing people to Caribbean culture, the carnival culture,
Yes.
but you're also telling the story of a girl that wants to be this character that has been for the majority of its lifespan portrayed by men. Right? It's started to change slowly but surely as the years have gone on. But imagine this little girl wanting to compete in a realm where only these older men exist, and
Mm-hmm.
it's her story being told through rhyme, climbing up the charts to be the best midnight robber there ever was.
Okay. Okay. Um, in terms of, I mean, in these two books are books that you would have authored as well as books that you would have illustrated. In terms of the activities, the illustration, did it take longer than the writing, or did the writing
Oh,
take longer than the illustrating?
I am an illustrator first. So ultimately, the illustrations took a shorter time
Mhm.
because I think visually.
Okay.
Like before the first manuscript on both books were even done, I had sketches ready.
Ah.
And it's like some people think of working backwards. You work from the sketches and put everything together, but no, I that's how I tend to work.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I mean, yeah, that's pretty much it. Like it's harder for me to write than it is for me to illustrate.
Ah, okay. I've seen that illustrating is you could say a stronger skill set. When it
Correct. Yeah.
when it came to writing, is it something that you need assistance with? It is that you need a coach, an editor, or something to guide you along the way?
Well, this is something I tell everybody that asks a similar question: is that no matter what, you will need an editor in every way, shape, or form, be it
Mm-hmm.
through the arts, be it through the writing. You will need help because nobody's trained to see their flaws. And when you're writing, unless you step away from that piece for 6 months at most, you're not going to be judgmental of what you're seeing on the page, right? So going to an editor, going to like a consultant or a friend just to read over the manuscript for you and
Mm-hmm.
just say, hey, this doesn't make any sense. Like, the continuity doesn't match here. That word is out of place. Like, even down to the punctuations, right? You will always need help creating these types of works. So yes, I reached out to different editors. One of which is a very well known Caribbean author herself. Her name is Tracy Baptiste.
Ah,
Uh,
okay, okay.
yeah, Tracy Baptiste. She's well known for her book series called The Jumbies,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
like a traditional press in Trinidad and Tobago. Her family's from Trinidad as well. So I reached out to her in the very beginning because, like kid, like game knows game, right? So I wanted her to look it over and just so she had a better understanding of the culture in general, so she gave me better feedback. I had a couple of friends who are copy editors that says like, oh, this sentence is way too long. You could have had the same impact if you just cut this short here. I was like, okay, all right, fine. And even down to the art. It's like the art doesn't make any sense here. Like the continuity, it's like your character has glasses in one scene, or the mole is in this place in one scene, but different everywhere else. Like you always need like more than one set of eyes on something, especially in the creative world.
Okay, okay. Being an illustrator, you would be no stranger to collaboration. You should have to work together with writers to make sure and get, to bring what it is that they're writing to life, or have it represented in a way that, they feel, the writing embodies their writing, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
Um, in terms of your collaboration, when I looked on your site, it seems that you work together with Caribbean Reads. Can you tell
Yes.
us a little bit about that?
So Caribbean Reads is run by Carol Michelle, and it is what the title entails. It's a press that emphasizes books on Caribbean culture, not only Trinidad but Jamaica. The one of the books called The Masquerade Dance takes place in St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Kitts and Nevis, right? And similar to the Carnival Prince, it's a kid's first time interacting with Carnival. The second one is Talking Mango Tree, which is based in the Caribbean, not a specific island, but it's a retelling of an old African proverb, I believe. And Carol's mission is to go out into the Caribbean and introduce this stuff in ways outside of like strictly educational, right? I think that's one of the things we ran into like very early on. I ran into very early on. Like I was able to distribute the book my books in the States, but to get them distributed in the Caribbean, especially in Trinidad, there had to be a huge emphasis on education.
Okay.
Right. And a lot of times it was disregarded because like, what are my kids learning from this? One of the big things about the Carnival Prince and the Midnight Robber is that I wrote in the vernacular of the community. Okay. Right. So that means I'm using words like dotish. I am using words like, oh yeah, like that type of thing to pull the reader into the book to give you more of that feel of the Caribbean. But at the same time, at the very end of the book, there's a glossary to bring you back into it. Right. So like say an American reader is reading this book, it's like, what's all yeah? It's like, you know, what's dotish? Like all this different stuff. And like, go to the back of the book. You know, it's like my goal is to make the native readers feel heard and to make the foreign readers challenge themselves. Because a lot of the time, especially in America, people have to go to Americans, right? They have to conform to the way they speak for them to be even paid attention to. And my goal is just to reverse that. Like, I wanted them to feel uncomfortable for a little while, but at the same time, enjoy the story. Okay. Right. But coming back to Caribbean Reads, Cal very much does the same thing. She wants to introduce the world to Caribbean stories and Caribbean writers and Caribbean creatives in every way, shape, and form.
Okay, I mean that's fantastic, man.
Yeah, she's amazing. She's definitely amazing.
Okay. One of the questions I had, I wasn't aware that you had spent so much time in the States, but I'll ask the question anyway, and I guess we'll see if it applies to you or not. Basically, what I noticed is that one of your qualifications was that you had qualifications in visual arts. Now, in Trinidad, the emphasis or the popular fields would be in getting qualifications in the fields of energy, you know, engineer, etc., etc. Now, again, reading your website, you know, one of the things you indicated is that you have a passion for science. How come it is you choose to get qualifications in terms of visual arts as opposed to sciences?
I'm a storyteller first. Like as much as it's like for a very long time, I ran away from that identity, like through elementary, through high school. You know, like even though I drew and I was good at it, sports, like it's like hidden those different things. But when I graduated, I realized like that's what I really do care about. You know, and that was the way I learned. Like I'm a visual learner on top of that. It's like that. It's a weird thing to say because a lot of people are visual learners, but like specifically the way I took information, the way it stuck with me was through the visual form. You know, like in books, there's a saying where like the truth is in the exaggeration, right? So even like reading a folklore, like I was still able to parse the real history that folklore is being told around, right? And I wanted to do the same thing for other readers. And when I left high school, like I realized like it's a toss up between psychology and illustration. And after a while, like through different ins and outs, different situations, I ended up going with illustration and never looked back. But I still, my wife will tell you, like I'm a voracious reader. I pull in as much information as possible, sometimes to our detriment, you know, because like, you know, simple thing is like, hey, we're having a baby. Let's look up all the good and bad things that can happen in this situation. You know? And like you think you're preparing yourself, but at the same time, like if you have anxiety, that's probably the worst things you can do, you know? But it's something I still don't shy away from. Like there's a book series that I've read multiple times already, based around a show on sci-fi called the Expanse. Right, far-flung future, but it's what they call like hard science fiction. And it's things you can like, even though you understand that this book is essentially Harry Potter in the future for adults, that's how I think about it. There's still elements in that book that you can pull away. It's like, oh, this is emerging science, right? Where in Star Trek, it's like somehow atmosphere exists in all these spaceships and people could walk around with any problem. The Expanse expounds on that. It's like, no, that's not possible, right? You have to create your own gravity in space, right? If a plane is moving, like let's say if a spaceship is moving on X and Y axis, right? Your head has to be facing the X axis, facing up all the time for gravity to be created when that spaceship is moving, right? And that's something you glean from those books. Like I mean, it's a roundabout way to getting back to like, I still love science, but at the same time, I learn through illustration, and I want to be able to do that same thing for other people.
Oh, man, I'm just hearing you here, and I'm hearing the passion for the science, and again, I'm seeing the work that you're doing. So I'm wondering, I mean, how you're able to connect the two.
When I find the time, like right now, there's multiple stories sitting in the sketchbook somewhere. Like there's a series that I'm working on. It's an ongoing series called Duppies, Droids, and Dingley.
Okay.
And essentially what it is, I'm expounding on the world of the Carnival Prince, but at the same time enabling myself to tell different stories through that one series. And one of the books, one of the characters I'm working on, his name is Howler. And Howler in the far-flung future is a hard sci-fi novel with a little twist where like somehow during some climate catastrophe, people head towards the Caribbean, right? And the world blooms from the Caribbean, and they find their way to the stars from the Caribbean. So like the culture is a mass from the Caribbean going into space and spreading that in some way, shape, or form. Like, and that's how I'm trying my best to tell, once again, a Caribbean story, but with a sci-fi twist.
I mean, it sounds interesting, man. When you do, you have to tell us. You have to share it with us first.
Crossing fingers. It's a very slow process, and then finding time on the top of that as well. I've been fortunate within the last like few years. A lot of blessings have fallen in my lap. Like I got an agent, and the agent helped me get these two amazing books that are coming out in 2024. Not Caribbean themed, but they're still to me, very impactful. Like they've already been announced. So like one is Juneteenth is, and it's funny we're talking today because in the States it's Juneteenth, right? And for everybody that doesn't know, Juneteenth is celebrating the last of the slaves knowing they were freed, right? So in Texas, it's like people found out that there were still slaves there months, forgive me, but like months, years after the fact they were actually freed.
Yeah.
So a general went in there and read the proclamation, and finally, boom, like they were free. All right. So Juneteenth is a girl's story about not her first, but like her understanding what Juneteenth is, right? So, and that's coming out next year, and that was amazing for me. Like it's a huge, heartfelt book, and a lot of love went into it because like there's a lot of characters that I've worked on. Second one is Glenn Burke. Once again, for all those that don't know, Glenn Burke is the first out Black baseball player in the MLB, and he also in the baseball league. He also invented the high five, right? So interesting little twist, right? So both those books are coming out next year, highly impactful to me, and I hope to everybody else that reads it. And then at the same time, I'm expecting a child in a month. So like a lot of blessings, falling in your lap. So like it's like, all right, how do we find the time to raise an amazing human being, and at the same time find time to make money to raise that human being, and still work on the stories that I want to work on. It's going to happen, right? It's going to happen, but it's going to take some adapting.
I mean, as I listen to you talk about these things, sometimes the authors who I speak to, sometimes I hope that they do like that they make notes of these things and they do some kind of maybe a biography or something about the happenings, because it just sounds so interesting the way that things seem to be progressing in your life.
Oh yeah. Oh, it's like, I mean, I can. If my wife is here, I'll let her tell the story. But it's been a ride. It's been a ride for the last year and a half. Yeah. It's like no issue performing. Like we had a doctor's appointment this morning, and the doctor walks, is like, hey, actually let me scale that back. That's her story to tell. That's not my story to tell, right? But it's been a wonderful ride.
Okay, okay. I mean, it can, what it is you were saying kind of led me to my other question because one of the things, one of the objectives of this podcast is to show persons that writing, that getting like employment in the arts, that it's not just uh possible, it's also sustainable. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
if it is that you were given the opportunity to talk to teenagers, persons about to leave school, is this what advice would you give to them if it is that they were contemplating getting employment in the arts, being illustrators or writers?
All right, so especially um in the last half a year.
Hmm, hmm.
This is a very loaded question because there's a lot of things happening at this very moment, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
Um, and understanding there's different types of writing as well. There's fiction writing, there's nonfiction writing, there's journalism, like there's all these different things happening. And one of the things in my transition, moving away from my day job of 12 years to like full time illustration, I'll tell everybody it's you can sustain a living, but right now I feel, and a lot of our artists feel, it's under attack as well because you're being highly undervalued,
Mm.
right? Writers as well. Case in point, the Writers Guild Association in Hollywood
Yeah,
is
yeah.
on the strike right now because once again you have corporations that their bottom line is their bottom line. Money is first and foremost. Don't
Hmm,
care how they make it, the money is first and foremost. So
hmm.
if that means undervaluing creatives to do so, they will do it. And I'm going to get in my soapbox for a second, and I apologize for this.
Hmm.
But the one thing that keeps popping up now, a lot of artists, a lot of writers, artists, you name it, is AI, or what they call it, generative AI, that was essentially built on the backs off of stolen artwork, right? Unethical, these what was originally nonprofit organizations sweeping the entire internet and taking up billions of images, billions of lines of text, and creating these systems to now essentially undervalue the people that they took the work from,
Mm.
right? So we are currently working with that. Like, is it going to shake out? It can. Like the Copyright Office in the United States essentially said that um, people aren't creating the works on AI. Like they can't copyright the art and they can't copyright some of the writing because you're not creating it. You're prompting a machine to do something. And in the United States, like if something's created by a machine, you can't copyright it. So that's like one of the saving graces right now. And it's a tumultuous time. Can you make a living off of it? Absolutely. Right. Right now, are you willing to ride that wave? It takes a certain type of person to want to ride that wave until things sort itself out.
Hmm.
Like AI can generative AI can definitely be a tool to get you different places. But right now, people are trying to undervalue artists, so it's not a tool; it's the end goal, right? So it's something to look forward to. But it's like publication companies, video game companies right now, like they tell you, it's like, yeah, we don't want to work with machines, we want to work with people, right? Because there's something inherent in telling a human story, where a
Yes.
machine is just spitting out, like regurgitating what's been done already. Like it can't do anything original,
Hmm, hmm.
it's just regurgitating what's already been done, right? So that's a saving grace. But at the same time, like you can, the snaking his tail is like, well, when you create something original, just take it and just spit it back out there,
Yeah, yeah.
right? So we have a few years through the EU, through England, through the United States to kind of like hash out like where we're going with this.
Okay.
Is it going to stop me from creating? Absolutely not, right? Because it's been something I've been doing my entire life.
Hmm.
But sometimes second guessing, and this, yeah, I'll be very honest. Like sometimes you second guess, like how much money can I make off of this moving forward, right? Because you don't necessarily know where the market is going to pan out. But at the same time, life has changed. Things are always changing,
Yes.
right? So you can adapt. You can stay where you are and still create a clientele that wants human created work.
Hmm.
Um, but a lot of kids, my wife's a teacher at an art school, and the kids are worried about it, but there's some of them that are still pushing forward, and they very positive about where they're going, right? And those are the people that will come out on top. Art, being a creative in general, is a struggle, right? When I got to art school, art college, the first week we were there, the head advisor had a meeting with the entire illustration class and essentially said, it's like, yeah, only 10% of you are going to be doing art once you leave here. 2% of you are going to be successful. And that is something you have to take in consideration. And I remember that the funny thing is when we were graduating, a lot of my friends, like, they never told us it's going to be this hard. I was like, what are you talking about? That was the first thing they told us when we walked in here. Right? Were you not listening? Right? You got to love what you do, right? With anything in this life, you got to love what you do to pursue it. It's going to hurt sometimes. Like I can imagine, like being a parent,
Yeah.
right? It's not always going to be happy. It's not happy-go-lucky. Bad things are going to happen, but can you weather that storm? Does that answer the question? I know that's long-winded.
No. Interestingly enough, your answer kind of led into other questions that I had coming up because I
Yes.
on the ball, because I was going to ask about AI and what your opinions were about it. So yeah,
Mhm.
I mean, you're. I see what you did there. I see what
Mhm.
you did there. But I mean, after you mentioned all the things that you mentioned there, I mean, as you're looking at the landscape and you're seeing how things are changing as a creative, as an illustrator, and as a writer, what are some of the things that you do to keep your skills sharp?
Don't be afraid to share your work. Um, like there are because I'm going to amend that. Don't be afraid to share your work with people that want to see you do better.
Okay.
Right. We'll wade back into the whole AI thing, like for a brief second again, where there's this weird divide where we call the AI bros, where they want to see the demise of artists. Like if you online can be, and this is through an online perspective. Like when you look at the comments, where like it's like artists are dead, you adapt or like the saying is adapt or die. It's like blah blah blah, so on and so forth. Like it feels very much like when crypto was creeping into the market, where it's crypto or nothing,
Yeah.
right? It's like you invest in us like because banks are dead, blah blah blah, and so on and so forth, right? And there's a similar feeling where these AI bros want to push people out of the market because that's how they're making money, right? Um, oh my god, my goodness, I just lost my train of thought. Pull me back in, reel me back in. Sorry.
Oh, the question I was asking originally, well, I can ask the question again. What are some of the things that you do to keep your skills sharp as you
Oh
look
yes, sorry.
and see
Yes,
how
yes.
things are changing?
So like AI bros don't want to see you succeed, so they're gonna poo poo all over what you're doing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you find the people that want to create a community with you.
Mm-hmm.
Art is in general is creating a community, right? And you don't want to ever keep what you do to yourself, right? I know some people are scared of like, what if people take my work and so on and so forth. That's what art is to a certain extent. It's people borrowing stories, right? Retelling it in their own voice,
Mm-hmm.
right? And to do that in the best way, have other people be there, be willing to take critiques, and that comes with writing, and that comes with art as well. Be willing to take chances, be
Yeah.
willing to break the rules, but also be willing to hear when you didn't really succeed or somebody feels you didn't succeed, because you can always take or leave advice,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? But always be open to taking critiques, taking advice to grow as an artist. Always be willing to go outside of yourself and pull in different things. Like part of the reason I consider myself a successful storyteller is because I don't only pull from one branch of what I know, right? If there's something I don't understand, like the Juneteenth book I was working on,
Mm-hmm.
right? The Glenn, like both books I was working on, I took the time out, and it's like the Glenn Burke book takes place in the 70s and 80s. Best
Mm-hmm.
believe I'm going and looking up 80s fashion, right, to make it feel as authentic as possible. Or if
Yeah.
it's taking place in a very specific like stadium, right, I'm looking up pictures of what that stadium looked like
At that
back
point.
in the 80s because it could be totally different now.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Don't be afraid to go out into the world and pull in as much information as possible. The more reference that you're able to pull in, the more authentic that your work becomes.
Okay. Okay. I mean, well said. Well said. In terms of all the things that you've mentioned here, I mean, and all the projects that you have coming up, I mean, what's next for Daniel? I mean, I know that you said that you have the books and stuff coming up, that there's a wonderful human that's on the way as well. I
Mhm.
mean, what's next for you?
Riding that roller coaster that is going to be a daddy. That's first and foremost.
Yeah.
Like I talked to my agent, pretty much said like for the next 3 months. Well, after the baby's born, for 3 months,
Hmm.
daddy will be it's like that's going to be my full time job. After that, we can now discuss where we're going from there. But I plan on still taking in illustration jobs when they come.
Yeah.
Um, I'm also looking into teaching, right? Um, and just taking it day to day. Like there's no right now, there is no grand scheme, right? You could ask me that 3 years ago. Yes, there's a grand scheme. Getting an agent and making sure I'm working for like the big press. Like because the Cardinal Prince, the original version of Cardinal Prince, and the Midnight Robber, those are self-published. I was
Hmm.
fortunate that a publishing company remade the Carnival Prince a few years ago, right? So that was like it's like a regular public press. But now it's becoming a daddy and kind of feeling out the market and how and feeling out how I can better sustain a living for myself, for my child, for my wife.
I mean, excellent, excellent. In terms of the books that we have written, if it is that we want copies of these books, where can we get them?
You can find the Carnival Prince and I'm the Midnight Robber on Amazon.com.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, you can find also you can pre-order Juneteenth is
Hmm. Hmm.
written by Nicole Triplett on Amazon. You can also pre-order Glenn Burke on sorry, you can pre-order Glenn Burke. Oh, what is the actual name? I should know this going forward. Oh, hold on. I'm gonna look this up very quickly. I know this is dead air. We can edit this out. You can't, or because it makes for good comedy. Hold on 1 second. All right.
Yeah, sure, man. Sure, 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 sure.
All right. So the name of the book.
Hmm.
Oh, hey. Oh, sorry. This is all real time for me. So the cover reveal is on Amazon.com, which is amazing. Like
Ah,
this is the first time I'm seeing this, but it's called Glenn Burke Game Changer, the man who invented the high five, written by
okay.
Bildner and illustrated by Daniel J. O'Brien. You can pre-order that now on Amazon Prime. Also, I recommend this highly, bookshot.org.
Hmm.
Uh, every book that you buy from that website supports a local bookstore.
Ah,
But
okay.
like retailers, Walmart.com, Target.com, you name it. Anywhere you could buy a book, you can
Hmm.
buy my books as well.
All right. Excellent, excellent. All right. Well, Daniel, that brings us to the end of our interview. I mean, thank you very much for making yourself available and also sharing with us insights about yourself, the industry, and where you see things going, as well as for where the Caribbean is concerned, as well as for the industry on the whole.
Thank you. I really do appreciate this. It's been great talking. It's been amazing.
Okay, likewise, likewise.
You take care.
You've been listening to TLC, Tropical Literature Creators. If you've heard something of interest or something you like, reach out to us. Reach out to our authors. Follow us on social media. We look forward to hearing from you.